Welcome to Remarkable Retail Podcast, Season 5, Episode 18, presented by Marketile. I'm Michael LeBlanc.
And I'm Steve Dennis.
Well, Steve, greetings from the Muskoka Cottage region, a couple of hours north of Toronto, where it is freakishly warm. 19 today. That's about 66 for my American friends. I was worried I didn't have time to put my snow tires on yet, so A, I sound a bit different on the mic, and B, global warming.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's global warming related, but we may be dodging some tornadoes here in North Texas shortly. So hopefully we'll get the episode in before I need to head down into the bunker.
Well, if I hear you clicking your heels, I'll know that the tornado is near. So I'll
try not to call you Andy M.
And on this episode, we're back in Vegas at the NAC show in the Marketile Podcasting studio with an exclusive interview with Cara Keating, Chief Customer Officer, Frito Lay North America, and her counterpart on the beverage side, Chad Matthews, Chief Customer Officer at PepsiCo Beverages-North America.
Yeah, it was fun to talk to them, both because of the content. Well, maybe three things, really, because it's always three things. Mm-hmm. The content, I thought was super, super interesting, and they were great guests. Secondarily, we don't talk too much to CPG brands on the podcast, so that's a little bit of a twist, still within the broader context of retail, obviously. And we did this with kind of an audience because we were there in the Marketile studio on the floor, and we had quite a lot of people staring at us. So the pressure was on. I think we pretty much nailed, we stuck the landing, but listeners will have to decide for themselves.
Well, we'll get to that in a little bit. It's a very busy news of the week. We're going to start here in Canada with breaking news. Lowe's exits Canada, selling their business for $400 million and a player to be named later to Sycamore Partners. Do you know Sycamore Partners? They've got a whole roster.
I do, yes. Yeah. They've been quite active in retail investing over the years.
Well, they've got good experience in Canada because one of their portfolio companies is Staples, and they've done actually a really good job here in Canada, and I think in the U.S. as well, of investing in the brand. Not just squeezing the lemons to get some juice out, right? They've really put money into it. Anyway, the Lowe's story is pretty epic. I mean, they first came to Canada. They tried to buy a company about an 83-year-old Quebec-based company called Rona and Renault Depot, but they were left at the altar by the Quebec government the first time around and the Quebec pension funds who did not want a U.S. company buying a Quebec business. So they opened their own. They opened up about 14 locations, including, by the way, a few that Target abandoned, and they actually bought the
a little bit of irony there.
Well, there's a bit of irony. They bought the newly abandoned Target DC. They built a state-of-the-art DC, so Lowe's just came in and bought it. It was, hard to kind of pass up. And then they took another run at Rona, and they bought them for about $2.4 billion in 2016.
What is it about U.S. companies that can't get the Canadian market right, though?
On the whole, the markets are very much more similar than different. I mean, I can name Home Depot, Walmart, Costco, many companies that are very successful here, and a few that haven't been. Target, Sam's was here briefly, but exited the market. Sometimes I think they underestimate the complexity of the market. 2 languages, vast nation. Very complex buying Rona because of their Quebec roots, and it's a multifaceted business with, I have a little Rona right near me. It's a little small store. I mean, it's a very complex business. And listen, Home Depot has been here for a long time, is very entrenched, and also very entrenched with the contractor. So I don't know, maybe a bit of hubris, thinking, hey, we're Lowe's, we can figure this out, and it's just across the border, and how hard can this be? I think sometimes that prevails a little bit in their thinking. Let's talk about the economics again. Not an economics podcast, but there's so much economics news coming out, and of course, it's so relevant. Where do we start? The Fed raises interest rates, and we also have some good job numbers.
We also got this week, just quickly, the NRF's holiday forecast. Mm-hmm. So they predict that holiday sales, so the month of November and December, will grow between 6 and 8% compared to last year. Now, last year, people may remember, was an all-time record year. It was up. Holiday sales were up 13.5% over the year before. Now, that was a pretty easy comparison, to be fair. Yeah. So, that still looks pretty strong. Of course, a lot of inflation built into those numbers as well. So it's always hard to kind of parse out the particulars.
That's a super interesting point because it's 6 to 8%. I mean, overall inflation in the U.S. is closer to 10%. Now, that's very category specific. Lots more inflation in grocery than there is in apparel, for example.
Yes, right.
So, parsing that 6 to 8% out number to me feels like 1 to 2% of real growth, if that. But, it's not going backwards.
I think best case. The other thing that was a bit concerning was that we keep seeing a lot of profit warnings, even from some companies that posted objectively some pretty good numbers. So Canada Goose, Under Armour, Etsy, Airbnb, all pretty much had decent quarters, but they all said, the party's over here for us, and we don't expect things to be very good going into the next quarter in the next year.
And of course, I pay a little more attention to Canada Goose. And what was interesting is they called their numbers down based on China, not based on North American sales. Like they were expecting bigger things in the Chinese market that are not happening. You know what? I had an interesting conversation with a retail CEO yesterday, and he made the point that it's actually getting a little easier to hire tech people. Retail his retail tech is very tech oriented business because of all these layoffs. So the VC funded, the private equity funded businesses, they seem to be laying off people, but there's still, as to a point you made, the 1.7, there's plenty of jobs waiting, great jobs waiting. So it actually may benefit in a roundabout way, traditional or forward-thinking retail players who can actually go find the people to fill those jobs because there's plenty of them out there. All right, let's take a quick walk over to the Wobbly Unicorn segment. What's happening?
Oh, it was a pretty ugly week, I have to say. Not too surprisingly, but two of the biggest disruptor retail brands, I guess you could say, reported earnings this week. Peloton, once again, continues to struggle. Their sales were down a lot year over year. Their users were down year over year, though up a little bit compared to last quarter. A bit of good news, their margins are improving, and they managed to lose, quote unquote, only $409 million in the quarter. I guess you'd say it's only because it's a lot less than they lost the quarter before. Yeah. The CEO, who I guess you have to be a pretty glasses half full guy, I guess, to be running that company, said that their turnaround is ahead of schedule.
Fantastic.
And to be fair, they've got a lot going on with their new wholesale partnerships, and they're doing this thing with Hilton where they're going to have Peloton bikes. So there's a lot of changes going on, and you got to pull out of the dive, obviously, before you can start to turn things around. So some positive signs, but they are in a very big hole. The stock's down like 90% year over year. So that's not too exciting. And then my favorite whipping horse, Wayfair.
You're a big Wayfair fan.
They reported earnings. I have to say that their ability to obfuscate, that's a hard word to say. I think I said it close to correctly.
Hurt yourself, though. Don't hurt yourself.
In their investor presentation is very remarkable. I have followed them very closely because I've always thought their business model was pretty questionable. And they managed to report in a quarter where they reported sales down, where they lost $283 million in the quarter. That's a negative 10% operating margin. They lost 1 million customers. They managed to talk for pretty much their whole investor presentation with only the most optimistic take on everything. And because I am a bullshit spelling enthusiast, I just was like, wow, this is impressive. And then in the appendix, they mentioned basically, we lost $283 million and 1 million customers. So, chutzpah, I think, is sort of the word that I associate.
Now, on the positive side, because I'm a glass half full kind of wobbly unicorn section,
so
positive
Canadian.
guy.
So Canadian.
Adore Me gets acquired by Victoria's Secret for $400 million. That's good news, right?
Yeah, that was a pretty good exit, I think, particularly given some of the headwinds we see in the space. So Adore Me, which is this lingerie brand that's really focused on being more inclusive and diverse, as well as they've employed a lot of technology, which I think is part of the appeal as well for Victoria's Secret. Yeah, they got bought for about $400 million. I don't think we know too much about how big a brand they are, other than they've been growing pretty nicely. I think they have maybe 10 stores as well. So, we talked about this sometime earlier that I think what we are going to see, because of what's going on in the investor markets and because some of these brands continue to lose a lot of money, I think we will continue to see consolidation. So some of these bigger brands picking up these powerful but relatively small, fast-growing brands at pretty attractive prices.
You've been visiting some new formats. Let's talk about that. JCP Beauty, JCPenney Beauty. That's in JCP. They're based in Dallas, right?
They are based in Dallas, right. And I went up to the Stonebriar Mall in Frisco, Texas, which is close to their headquarters, and they are rolling out. People may remember that Sephora has largely, but continuing to exit JCPenney stores in favor of the Kohl's stores. They've just rolled out in a few stores and will be expanding it, I think pretty much chain-wide, their own concept, kind of a private brand space similar to Sephora, but with their own brands that they've created. And so it's maybe 1,000 square feet. And I went to check it out. And I would say that it's very attractively done. The product design looks good. This particular store, because it is basically their flagship store close to their headquarters, always looks much better than the other stores I've been in. So I think it's a great presentation. The only thing I would say about it is there's not a lot of sizzle there. There's no, just kind of slapping the JCPenney, JCP name on a section with a bunch of brands, to me, is not really creating a lot of kind of an emotional connection to the products they sell. And beauty, of course, is a pretty emotional category. So well executed in many respects in terms of presentation and whatnot, but I'm not sure from a branding standpoint it's got a lot that's really remarkable. But anyway, that is a new initiative from them and something certainly to watch, because they've got a lot of work to do to, it's an important category for any department store, and they've certainly lost some of the differentiation they had there with the Sephora brand.
Hey, Steve, are you a Frank Sinatra fan by any chance?
Well, it turns out I am.
Well, start spreading the news. We're coming to town, strapping on vagabond shoes. I want to wake up in a city that never sleeps, king of the hill, top of the heap.
Well, that's right. We're actually heading to the NRF Big Show in New York in January. In addition to meeting with and interviewing our top retail leaders in the industry in the Market Dial booth podcasting studio, we will be on stage with Gretchen Gantz, Senior VP of Strategy and Analytics from the most remarkable Container Store. So see us live in person Monday, January 16th at 12:30 on Expo Level 3, Expo Stage 3 for Shift Happens, Choose Remarkable or Irrelevance, brought to you by Market Dial.
All right, well, welcome to the Remarkable Retail Podcast. Chad, Cara, you and I have talked before on the Food Professor podcast. It's great to meet you in person. Chad, you as well. Thanks for joining us here.
Yeah, no,
great
thank
to be
you.
Here. Thank you.
Well, it's an exciting. I don't know about you two. My head's on a swivel at this conference. It's a bit of sensory overload. I visited your fantastic presentations. So much going on all the time. Thanks so much for taking the time to sit down and chit and chat with us. So let's dive right in, and I'm going to ask you a little bit about what your role is and describe your role. As I understand, it's kind of two sides of the same coin. Cara, why don't you kick us off? Tell us what you do for a living.
Sure. So my name is Cara Keating, and I'm the Chief Customer Officer for Frito Lay US. I am new in role in the last couple of months. Previously, where I knew you, Michael, was in Canada, where I led the Canadian foods business, Frito Lay and Quaker. So I've been with PepsiCo for 18 years, and if you think about my role as the food side, that is the other side of the coin with Chad in the beverage side.
Right. And Chad, so talk about the beverage side. It's expansive, lots of different brands. Tell us more.
Yeah, that's great. No, so I'm the Chief Commercial Officer for Pepsi Beverages-North America, and I've been in the company 24 years. I've actually been in leadership roles across both foods and beverages. And in my current role, I lead our commercial and our national customers, along with our go-to-market, revenue management, and industry relations.
So 18 and 24, so long-serving, right? Is that typical for the organization, or do people come and stay, and it's a great place to work? Clearly, you've both been there, spent a great career there. Cara, what do you think?
It is typical. We do have a lot of employees with a lot of tenure, and because of the size and scale of our business, and we have the foods and the beverages, it creates a lot of growth opportunities for people in their careers.
Right, and that growth opportunity was presented to you recently. Was that something, I'm just curious, was that something you sought out or something presented? How does it work at PepsiCo? You said, listen, you're on for the next step, and here's a menu of opportunities. How did that transpire?
It's always a little bit of the capabilities and experiences that you're looking for, timed with the opportunity of those roles coming up.
Right on.
And so for myself, I was open to an experience outside of Canada, and this came up, and so it's been an exciting journey so far.
Fantastic.
Now, I heard it was your childhood dream to be in Plano, Texas. That's not true? All right, we got bad
let me get
information
through a first winter, and then I'll let you know.
Well, having moved from Chicago to Dallas, I can tell you the first winter is a different and better experience. But anyway, well, so obviously PepsiCo is a huge company. I continue to be surprised by which brands I learned that you guys actually own or have launched or whatever. But maybe, I don't know, Cara, maybe you can just give us kind of a quick flavor of the scale and scope of PepsiCo, but maybe more in particular what you think makes PepsiCo as a company unique in the food and beverage world.
You bet. So PepsiCo has one of the largest food and beverage portfolios in the industry. And one of the things that makes us unique is the amount that we invest into innovation. And so we see that as a growth driver and fuel for our retailers to help drive growth together. So we invest a lot in innovation.
And Chad, do you have a perspective on like how you think about, and I don't know if it's different across the divisions, but when you think about innovation, what does that mean? What's the process? What informs the kind of innovation choices you're making?
Yeah, for sure. So innovation is always consumer-centric. So we always start with the consumer in mind to develop our innovation to meet those consumer demands. And, like Cara said, innovation is a core tenet to our growth. And what we want to do is delight our consumers every day and grow our categories for our retailers. And, we feel very proud of how we bring innovation to life. It's a core tenet when you think about the most successful retailers usually bring our portfolio of innovation to life. And we use a lot of analytics to help our retailers as well with the assortment to complement that innovation as well. So we have a lot of data and analytics that we use to segment shoppers and make sure that we have our portfolio in the right places of where the consumers would expect to find it.
And has that changed over the years? I worked in CPG a million years ago, and there was all sort of the standard research techniques, but obviously a lot's changed over time. I'm just kind of curious how and if the innovation process how it's evolved, I guess is a better question, over the last few years.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely more consumer-centric, and we actually use a lot more data and analytics. So we have a data engine backed by data science called PepViz, and that actually helps us inform what innovation that we help launch and where we launch it and how we launch it. And
so can you give us a little color about how that works?
Yeah, sure. So PepViz, it's once again data science. We also have experts in the industry that leverage this with our retail partners to bring innovation to life. And what I mean by that is we really look at how we bring innovation to life on shelf, how it complements the current portfolio, and how it stands out to the consumer to bring new and excitement to the category.
And do you, Cara, maybe for you, and if there are some differences across, I guess, the approaches in the division, that would be interesting. But are you doing a lot of prototyping? Is there, what does that look like in practice?
Yeah, you bet. If you want to start with a piece of innovation, you'll probably start with 100+ ideas and then figure out how you're going to take that to get some consumer research behind it and scale your ideas down until you get to about 10. And then you'd start to really prototype virtually to get that again in front of consumers and get some really great feedback before we decide what we're actually going to launch.
Yeah, and I imagine it's much more like what you can do visually today is quite a bit, before you had to set up the whole thing in store. Now you can do a lot more through renderings and that sort of technique. Yeah, interesting.
So I'm enjoying a very nice new fresh flavored Dorito here today. Tell me about this chip and tell me about how something like this comes to be. It's a great flavor profile, but as Steve's saying, as an organization, you basically have unlimited resources relative to many. That doesn't mean you throw money around. So what's the journey of a product like this? Is it a year? Is it 2 years? Where does it start?
Well, I see you've been at our PepsiCo booth. You've got the snacks.
Bite and smile,
You're
Michael.
enjoying
Bite
them.
and smile.
Very good.
I mean, that's one of the great things about this show is connecting with people and the products. And so we've hosted a lot of people who've got to try the innovation. So what you're trying is part of our...
Good.
Glad you like it.
So we're going to take a pause for a snack break here, actually. Really
now a word from our sponsor.
Yes. So what you are tasting is some of the new flavor trends. So we know that consumers like spicy foods, but this is adding a bit of a tanginess to it. So with Doritos Barbecue, you'll taste a sweet and tanginess to it, and that's coming to life for you in that chip.
Chad, let's talk about the convenience store industry. I mean, it's a massive conference here. I imagine it's a very important segment as segments kind of lay out in your world, both of your worlds. Talk about what excites you about what's happening in the convenience store category.
Well, in the convenience channel, it's dynamic right now, and a lot of things are shifting. The shopper behavior is shifting. When you think about, probably we had a lot of retailers that I would talk to early in the year that was very nervous about the economy with gas prices going up. Historically, that would equate to traffic going down in the convenience channel. But what I tell you, what's exciting about it is it didn't. It actually grew throughout the summer. And this channel is dynamic right now because there's a lot of kind of channel blurring that's happening. So, you have convenience channel competing for food service with the quick serves of the world.
Right.
Omni-channel is really prevalent in grocery, but now becoming really prevalent with convenience channel.
Say more about that. What do you mean?
So, ordering online, where on a convenience channel, there's a lot of now new technology that enables people to order online and get deliveries within an hour or two. And so those platforms are really getting built out right now and starting to scale across the channel, which is exciting.
Is that an opportunity you both see for your products, the kind of omni-channel, or is this through their vendor partners? I mean, 10 years ago, if we were sitting here, maybe even 20, we were talking about going direct. That was a big talk amongst, well, if I can, I should. But we all know that's much, much easier said than done, and it's not always the right thing to do, particularly in products like yours. Talk about how you think about it. Cara, talk about how you think about that.
Yeah, absolutely. We want to be where the consumer wants to purchase the product, when they want to purchase it, and how they want to purchase it. And so we are much more versed in that pre-shop, and they might be doing that part online. Then they may have a combination of being in-store or purchasing products online. And then their post-shop, they may be doing different things and interacting with social media in different ways with the brands. So it's really evolved, and we want to be and partner with our retailers in all of those locations. We also have our own direct consumer business called snacks.com that we've also dabbled in, I would say. But it is, it's not easy to create scale.
Even for a business of your size, right? Even for a business of your size. And I guess the objective is 1 + 1 = 3. Right? What you're trying to do is have both, let's call it wholesale or distribution plus whatever direct looks like, right?
We're really trying to build those capabilities across the entire omni-channel. So that's how we talk and interact with consumers, to also how we go to market and deliver our products at the end of the day, whether it's to a retail store or a location.
Right. And Chad, you talked about the changing nature of consumption. Like, we were all a little bit surprised at how it didn't change in the same direction it would have historically. We've been talking to some folks here, and they've been telling us that, well, maybe the convenience store lost off in a bit of the breakfast day part because people are working from home, but they're making it up as if people want to go for a break or they are having dinner. Is that what you're seeing as well, and coordinating your efforts against different day parts that you wouldn't conventionally have thought for the channel?
Absolutely. Day parts are critical, and we did see a drop-off in the day parts on the breakfast occasion, but I think those are getting made up in the other parts of days of the day occasions that occur in lunch and after kind of the dinner. We have a portfolio that has a wide range that plays across breakfast past dinner, and we haven't seen a big slowdown in our portfolio across those day parts, which is exciting.
And when the convenience store folks are sitting in front of you, what are their key issues that they need help with? Like, as I understand, you've got a convenience store, you've got some very big, large players, you've got a lot of very small players. You need to be there for both of them, right, Cara? How do you think about that?
Retailers are trying to win the trip. So get the consumer into their store, and then once they're in their store, satisfy the needs that they're looking for. So whether it's the day part, and really make it a one-stop shop for them, whether it's a fill-in, whether it's grabbing lunch, whether it's in the morning, getting your coffee and a cookie, for example, whatever it is.
A break from the home office, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I would also add, with the inflation that's occurred, retailers are very, and so are we, passionate about growing units. So we really need to continue to find ways, as the basket is bigger and it's still driving growth, but we really need to get back to driving units, which is a core tenet to be growing your business, to make sure it's healthy.
And that's kind of the idea that more volume solves a few sins of profitability. You raise the volume up and everything stays. You can get your profitability for you and the channel, right? Cool.
Absolutely.
Really. So let's look forward to the future a little bit. I'd love both of you just maybe to weigh in on this. As you think about what you need to understand, what you need to make sense of, whether that's from the consumer standpoint, whether it's from your partner standpoint, technology standpoint, how do you go about doing that? I think our audience would love to hear a little bit about what that because you guys are so good at it. Obviously, you've got this machine of creating innovation for decades, I guess, at this point. How do you go about doing that? Kind of paint a picture for those inputs in that process.
Yeah, so there's probably a couple things that come to mind. It's a collaboration between us and our retail partners on the problems to solve. And I think we always go about it with a framework of product innovation, getting it faster to the market. We also look at stronger data and insights to inform, the next best action. And then I think we also have a commitment to sustainability and social responsibility that is playing a much bigger part in the retail landscape to help drive growth.
Yeah.
So we call that PEP Positive. And that's really our end-to-end journey for positive action for the planet and people. And we want to partner with our retailers to bring that to life in different ways. So, for example, we have a Cheetos program called Dea Dea, which focuses, essentially that translates to make your mark. And how can we help Hispanic communities with the donation of money and funds and in-store programs to amplify voices. So that would be an example of where we're trying to partner with our retailers to bring things that help our planet and communities to life.
And how do you, this has come up a bunch of times on the podcast, most companies now are talking about being good, and have been in some cases for a long time, talking about being good corporate partners. But a lot of times, the healthier choice, the more sustainable choice, whatever it is more expensive. Either the consumer has to pay a higher price or there's a profit impact. How do you weigh that? Is it an ROI calculation? Is it good business? Is it's just the right thing to do? I mean, it just seems like there's a lot, if we're honest, there's just a lot of pressure to balance those things. Is there any kind of inkling you can give us to how you guys are solving for that?
Yeah, I think we've put a stake in the ground that it is the right thing to do, and our PEP Positive brings that to life. And there will be a cost component, so we have to find other ways to offset those costs. Some of it isn't necessarily a cost component, so as we reduce sodium in products, for example, it takes a lot to innovate and make sure that we get the right flavor, because people still want snacks that taste good. Right. But otherwise that would be fairly cost neutral. Versus other things are huge investments in terms of finding new and different packaging solutions for the future, offsetting carbon emissions in different ways. So it is a big investment, and we are committed to it.
All right. Well, listen, it's been so fascinating. Thank you both so much. I imagine you're super busy. You've been running off your feet, meeting with all kinds of important people. We wanted to thank you so much for joining us on the Remarkable Retail Podcast. Cara, it's such a treat to meet you in person.
Great to see you again.
We had to go to Las Vegas to do it, but maybe we'll connect again. And Chad, and both of you, congratulations on your success, continued success, and once again, thanks for being on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It was really great.
Thank you. Great to be here.
If you like what you heard, please follow us on Apple, Spotify, your favorite podcast platform, so you can catch up with all our great interviews, including Hal Lawton talking about Tractor Supply's remarkable Life Out Here growth story. New episodes of Season 5, presented by Market Dial, will show up each and every Tuesday. And be sure to tell your friends and colleagues in the retail industry all about us.
And I'm Steve Dennis, author of the best-selling book, Remarkable Retail, How to Win and Keep Customers in the Age of Disruption. You can learn more about me, my consulting, and keynote speaking at StephenPDennis.com.
And I'm Michael LeBlanc, consumer retail growth consultant, keynote speaker, and producer and host of a series of retail trade podcasts, including this one. You can learn even more about me on LinkedIn, and you can catch up with Steve and I in person at the NRF Big Show in New York, January 16th on the stage, talking about what it takes to be remarkable with Container Store SVP Gretchen Gantz. See you in New York, everyone.